Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and
George?
No, fail! Welcome back. It is the Unofficial 40 podcast right here at Soonerscoop.com, where spring has sprung and the gang is all here. We'll just say pretend like Bob's here too. He will be chiming in on our various other YouTube platforms. But right now, Josh McQuiston, Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya, and myself are here to talk about spring starting. Today is the first practice. We'll have some viewings going on. Things are just falling apart in the studio. But I have one little thing, Josh, that you'll appreciate. Not being in the office, just getting to kind of know what people are like sometimes. There's this thing that happens with George every once in a while where he like turns into a little kid, and it happened today. We have our stash of Roback that's been sitting in a box. It's my fault. It's been sitting in the box. I wanted to try and do like a reveal for some of the YouTube stuff, but we've had too much going on, and so George comes in, and I knew it was killing him. Like, I know this about like a box of stuff for you that.
Well, I didn't understand why it was just sitting there.
I know. I wanted to do a reveal, like I just said.
Yeah.
You're watching basketball. I understand. You're not paying attention. You're a kid. So
I am paying attention.
So, like, George comes up and like, hey, and I knew it was driving him crazy that box was just sitting there. I was ready for him to ask me when he could open the box, and of course, first thing I get here today. Hey, can we open our Roback stuff? And I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Because I knew it was my fault, and something should have happened by now. So it's funny when that happens, though. Childlike wonderment,
relatable. That is my kids. My kids, for them, it's Amazon. Anything that not that. I'm talking like Eddie and George are your kids, so I do apologize to those guys.
I think this has all been mischaracterized, Josh.
Moral of the story
this
here.
Might be surprising.
Moral of the story here.
No,
I'm a normal person.
Happened.
I'm a normal person that just wanted to open a package that we got instead of leaving it unopened, which we have unopened. We have unopened packages all over this office that Carey orders. We get a new box every day, and it just sits.
Now, that's a mischaracterization right there. That's not true at all. But there are some boxes that have never been opened that are here.
Yes, there's quite a few.
George, Eddie, on the download, I'm going to need you to just send me pictures of each new box that comes in, so I can vet these and the terrible damage done to our accounts that I'm sure is happening.
Yeah, that can be done.
Okay, great.
Good luck on 0 pictures. All right, let's get into it. We had full spring media day yesterday, and by the way, I do appreciate. I that makes me like my heart warm up, George, when you come and ask me that, because I know that you're happy, like you want to see stuff.
I love Roback; they're great. I wear a lot of their stuff, so I was just excited to put it on. I'm wearing it right now.
Code Sooner20.
Yeah,
20% off. So anyway, we had the full spring kind of media day experience yesterday. You guys have seen our stuff on YouTube. You saw the instant reaction that was posted last night. Really good show. And but John Mateer starts. Brent Venables talks forever and then barely takes any questions because he's out-talked his time. And then we get to talk to Jim Nagy. And, really, guys, I thought Jim Nagy and Josh, I know you haven't had a chance to chime in yet, but I thought probably one of the most interesting press conferences that we've had, not just because, he's great or anything like that, but just the subject matter. something that we've never talked about before or heard people talk about before. Just all kinds of new stuff. I thought it was just a nice press conference to sit through and really informational.
Yeah, and I thought he was very transparent. Like, I'm going to be – it wasn't like we're going to keep this under wraps. And really, unless it was, how are we going to build our roster? Okay, I get it. You're going to want to keep some of that under your hat. Like, that's completely reasonable. But, in the, how are he and Brent Venables going to make personnel decisions? How is that going to work with recruiting? How is it going to work with how they evaluate? Like, it seemed like a very clear picture to me. Like, and I thought the guy, like you said, I watched the show with George and Eddie, thought they did a great job kind of outlining that because he, it does. It seems like the evaluations, all of the kind of almost pre-offer, pre-introduction, pre-meeting is going to be on the personnel side. And then once they've identified, okay, these are the guys we like, then the coaching staff can step in and really start identifying, okay, we like this guy, we like that guy, this guy's going to fit us from a personal standpoint, like we like what he kind of is about and those sort of things.
And this is, he kind of alluded to this, a couple of times throughout his press conference, like not every, personnel or GM office is going to be the same across college, across college sports, college football. And OU obviously used the athlete group. They used Jake Rosenberg as a consultant as they were going through this process. He even, mentioned Jake yesterday, during his press conference. And it is, look, I think it's a gamble what OU is doing in some ways. They are going full force, all out, build out a personnel department. Not everybody is going to do that. Some people are just going to have head coaches that hire their recruiting director and make him the GM. And he'll just keep doing all the stuff. And, it'll be a lot like, when Curtis Lofton was here. Like, you just took a guy that was working for you and you said, he's our general manager. These are your job duties. What OU is doing is not that. They're hiring Jim Nagy. And people asked him, George, people asked him about the portal yesterday. He's like, well, that's fine, but I've got to hire people. Like I've got to build this department out. And he was even asked, how big does that get? How, what does that look like? And he doesn't even really know at this point. But he just said we need to hire more people.
Yeah, and I think what's fascinating is what you're saying, Carey, is we've never seen this before, from a college football program, and so we don't really know what it's going to he doesn't know what it's going to look like. And that's what's we could have sat and talked to him for hours yesterday about how they're going to do this thing. But I think that the part that stood out to me the most is when he was asked about what are you looking for in players? And his whole answer was basically, we need to get more NFL type bodies in this program. You need to go out and get guys that look the part. And, I said it on the show yesterday, but we talk all the time about OU needs more guys that look great getting off the bus. And that's basically what Jim Nagy said that they're going to go and do is go get guys that can be NFL type players. And if Oklahoma's going to have success in the future, they're going to need those guys. And then I thought the other fascinating part was him talking about not just the evaluations, but the valuations of positions and players, and talking about, I think it was to your question, Carey, about how they're going to put dollar
how they do it
amounts.
now when it's all pay for play versus how it might be in the future when they have some guardrails in place.
Yeah,
and it was interesting too because Josh, the biggest and Eddie, the biggest question I had was, how does Brent fit into this? And everybody wants to make hierarchy, everybody wants to say he's your boss or you're below him or you're above him. It was pretty clear that Jim Nagy yesterday said, we're working together on evaluations and I thought it was key too. He said, sometimes when I was at an NFL personnel position, we liked a guy, but we knew the coach didn't like that type of player, so we moved on to someone else. So even in the NFL, you have situations where the coach and the general manager have to make concessions to each other.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much in Dallas, but there are a lot of places that are run well that you would think that both are working on kind of the same level. And to a certain extent, we've talked about this before, but if shit hits the fan in 2025 and they make a move at head coach, guess who's not going to probably be fired? It's going to be the general manager. He's going to be staying around and putting this thing back together again. So I couldn't have been more impressed with Jim Nagy. I thought he was awesome yesterday. Just a clear vision, as George said on the YouTube show last night and said again here just a minute ago. I thought that there's a clear vision for what he wants, but I thought that there was also some, I guess, honesty, just in that he's not really done this before. Obviously, he hasn't worked in the college game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of wade this through together. And I think that he could be a good marriage with Brent, because Brent, all he has done is the college game, and all of it's changing. It's going to be kind of fun to see how it all comes together.
Josh, I wanted to ask you his comments about that they were going to, that basically him and his staff, Jim Nagy, that is, are going to do the evaluations of players, and then Brent and his staff are going to go out and recruit those players. What did you think about that, and how? I mean, and to be clear, Nagy also said that there's going to be, I think what he said is there's going to be some common ground. Like if they disagree on a player, they'll find someone else that maybe fits their mold of what they're looking for. What did you think about those comments and how that's going to work between Jim Nagy's staff and Brent's staff?
What, and I thought, he mentioned several times going back to the Seahawks, and that John Schneider and Pete Carroll and that relationship. And guys, you look at it, that is when it is so fundamental. I mean, like that is when these things work well, is when a front office understands what a coaching staff needs. Like what this is, and it's not just I need a good defensive end. I need a 4-3 defensive end that's 6'3" and can turn the corner as a pass rushing kind of specialist. As to where, okay, sometimes I want a 3-down defensive end who's going to be 6'6", 285, and is really just going to eat up double teams and that kind of stuff like that. There are fundamental differences, even though their position is technically the same. And so I think you have to have a real understanding, obviously that is a very broad view, but like even in the minutia, like Brent Venables may like a guy that is, maybe a little shorter so he can get under some of these big offensive tackles, but he's a little longer armed. Like we're willing to give an inch of height for maybe, 2 extra inches of wingspan, like that kind of stuff. What's going to be interesting to me, though, George, is, so much of Jim's experiences on hand, evaluation, whether it's him sending out his Senior Bowl staff and they're going out and just like NFL front offices and going to all these different practices around the country, or when he himself was a scout. You can't do that right now. As the rules stand, that can't happen. So how much of this is just going to be video evaluation? How much of it is going to be when, because I've seen this. This is some staffs do this. I wouldn't say a lot of staffs, but when I'm out at spring practices or I'm out at games, a lot of times these coaches have iPads with them and they're recording play by play by play, and they're going to document it and really kind of, file it all away for their staffs in-house to evaluate, and that coach himself to take another look at. So there's a lot of different ways they can go at that. I think that's going to be interesting, and it's one of the things that we're going to have to see how the NCAA rules continue to evolve with recruiting, because if those guys can get out on the road, even if it's 3 or 4 support staffers, they can do so much of the heavy lifting for the part where, Jim Nagy was talking about coaches having to watch guys that aren't able to help them. Like, I thought that was one of the most on-the-nose things he said all day.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the Jumbotron first, before attempting to eat a stack of Supreme nachos in one bite. Now you're just a meme that everyone shares on game day. Checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Yeah, and going back to the staff and scouting staff and all that stuff, that's going to have to be something that the NCAA is going to have to take a look at, and I'm sure the AFCA will have a voice in what they do with that going forward. And that's why I say this is a little bit of a gamble. You're talking about building out something and spending money to do it before you even know if you can do certain things. If this is going to be allowed by the NCAA. And, just doing it off of film, I guess they need Connor Stallions. If the NCAA doesn't change the rules, maybe Connor Stallions will be in Oklahoma someday.
I would also say it's a gamble in that sense, but I also think it's going to be a huge benefit in terms of just managing your own roster and like your own talent evaluation in your house, because when you talk about the limited numbers of 105 guys that you can have on scholarship, like all 105 matter. And so I think coming in and like that's going to be so fascinating over the next year, how Jim Nagy and whoever he hires evaluates the current roster for Oklahoma, because I was telling Eddie this, I do think you're going to see maybe some surprises in the spring portal in terms of maybe guys getting processed, because I think that's going to be, other than, Nagy coming in and hiring, whoever it is, that's his first priority. He said that yesterday. I think priority number 2 is who on this football team is worth what they're getting paid. And if they're not worth it, I wouldn't be shocked if they hit the portal come April 16th.
It's like having a second set of eyes. I mean, it's you're auditing your own program all the time. Because, look, we know this. You can get into a situation where you have a head coach and you have your assistants, and you're not recruiting real well at one position, tight end. And if someone can come out from the outside and say, like on the inside, you're like, well, it happened because this happened and this guy got injured and we really, he should have been a good player. And like you make excuses for why you get upside down sometimes. If you have another set of eyes to come in and just say, look, it's just not good enough. I mean, it's an audit. I like that, you will have it from it perspective.
It's going to be cutthroat. I mean, both Nagy and Venables said that yesterday. That's what it's going to be cutthroat.
I was getting ready to say is that it just seemed like, and we talked about this a little bit on the YouTube show last night, the way Nagy talks about a roster, like you should be privileged to be what's the number now? What's the cap at? Like what, 75 or whatever? 105. Like to be 102, 103, 104, 105. You should have a chance to be able to step onto the field and be able to play. Yeah. I know that's not going to be a reality. They're going to have some walk-on guys and guys that are going to just be, kind of a part of the program. But like even being a walk-on right now on this roster, the way that Jim Nagy talked about it, you should be a good player. Like you're not going to have throwaway guys, is what I'm trying to say. Well,
and I mean, Brent, what was the quote that Brent had yesterday? He's like, you don't get to be on the team just because you're a good guy.
Yeah,
like that doesn't happen anymore.
I love that.
Yeah.
It sucks.
That was music to my ears. That was the best thing I heard all day.
It sucks to a certain extent because we did talk to some of the freshman guys yesterday, like the Jacob Henry kid that is walking on. He's going to be a defensive lineman. He was a wrestler at Oklahoma. I thought he was awesome. Like just the simplicity of being a student athlete that is going to really cherish being around the program, trying to start a career. Who knows what he's going to be as a player? But I don't know. It sucks, like from a old traditional standpoint of the walk-on story, the guy that gives it all, that grew up in Oklahoma City, that all he wanted to do was be on the Oklahoma football team.
There's no more Rudies.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Well, I was going to say Baker, but he probably would have snuck through the cracks somehow. Yeah.
Rudy was a criminal. The other thing about it is
convicted of anything.
He was apparently a dickhead, though.
Yeah, he was. That's documented.
I still love that movie, though. It's one of my favorites.
Surrounded by too many Catholics right now. The other thing is...
should go to confession. You probably need it more than anybody.
The other thing is guys that have an injury history. They're in trouble in this new system, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Gentry Williams is a great example. Not saying that I think he's going to be gone at the end of the spring and he's going to be processed, because I do think that, even talking to somebody like Cortland Guillory yesterday, he made it known. It's like Gentry is the leader of that defensive back group. But if you're just kind of taking up a roster spot, they're going to have to make a move, and especially at a position where they're a little thin right now.
Even a Jaden Gibson, who, it sounds like he got re-injured the other day. Like, how do you view him? And I said it, in the conference room yesterday, but in the NFL, if you get hurt and you don't have a guaranteed contract with that organization, you get cut.
Yeah.
Like, and if you can't get on the field, you get cut. And it doesn't matter if it's a terrible knee injury. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Jaden Gibson, but I do think that over the next few years, that's how you're going to see a lot of teams treat those type of players, is if you can't get on the field, you're going to get cut.
And like you said, those guys, unless they have a contract, and what we know of NIL right now is this is a year-to-year contract that people have.
Yeah.
So you may be getting $1 million 1 year, and then all of a sudden you've been hurt the entire time. You might not get any money. You might just, they might just say, we're not going to give you any money next year. So, find another place.
Well, and so many people, are like, well, because, I talk all the time, like they're going to have to make them employees. Like I just believe that. Like I think that's the only way this thing ever gets any sort of organization and standard, and to be standardized. People are like, well, why would the players ever agree to that? Because they've got all the power. They have everything right now. Like I get it. At the same time, it's stuff like that is why you get, like, why the players come to the table, because you can offer them, okay, just because you blew out your knee doesn't mean we're just walking, like then the school has to be responsible for something, and then you kind of get a little bit of reciprocation of the responsibility of all of it. So again, that's the stuff like that I don't know that players have had to really stop and think about yet, but that's gonna come. I mean, that is around the corner as well.
Any other takeaways, Josh, just from, we'll just ask you flat out, anything else that really stood out to you about Jim Nagy before we move on to John Mateer?
No, I don't, but I did have one small addendum because I know somebody's yelling at the radio. Guys, they're going to have to add an extra 5-minute ending to Rudy. He is a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints now. That dude is
Mormon.
That is a wild change.
I think that's just a good representation of the name, image, likeness that's running around Salt Lake City and Provo right now.
Is it
see
possible,
BYU basketball spending all that money, all the cash?
Is it possible that Joe Montana changed his wiki page and we just don't know?
It could be possible, yes.
Sure.
Because I think it's Joe Montana that hates him the most, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't think that they're on speaking terms.
He came out and said most of that stuff that happened in the movie never really happened.
Yeah, I mean,
does anybody really think it did? Like, is that like a big shock to most people that
I'd like
the
to believe
guy
that everything that was in the movie happened?
I would like to believe it, but these are human beings.
The jerseys on the desk with Dan Devine, that never happened.
That 100% happened. I believe it. I believe it.
It is a nice Hollywood moment. Who knows? What if we dug into the Hickory Huskers and found out there was a bunch of bullshit in that too? That would be sacrilegious, I think. Especially
based
this
on
soon after
when
Gene Hackman passed.
that happened. I'm gonna guess a lot of people don't want to look into the background of that Hickory team. I don't. I'm gonna guess there's some skeletons in that closet you don't want to examine.
Who knows what Jimmy Chitwood got in NIL back then?
There might not be any skeletons, Josh, but I'm sure there's a couple hoods.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was aiming. I don't love probably the background of that team if I'm really thinking about it.
Great movie though, both of them. Great movies.
Unbelievable. Gene Hackman, my all-time favorite of his.
He hasn't done anything lately.
What would be worse? What could happen in Hickory or what's happening over there in Henrietta right now with the ankle bracelet boys?
Is that not crazy? That's the craziest story I've ever heard of. And the addendum that was added that, supposedly for late games, they couldn't play. They could only play the first quarter because they had to get home. That's insane. It's insane. I bet I have to get over to the big house.
If you don't know, what class are they?
Oh, because I think it's Wilson.
It's got to be
Wilson High School.
Wilson High School.
But is it in Henrietta?
Yes.
I don't know how that. I would imagine they're A or B.
It's probably a what do they call those, Josh? They build those private something Tories. Commensatory or something like that.
Like the type of school that it is? Oh, where they're combining the two.
No, they
towns
just build
or
a private school. All on its own, and it's usually
I think they play
religious based of some type. There's one in Frisco by my parents.
Wilson Henrietta basketball. I have no idea. If you don't know what we're talking about, they have the state tournament going on right now over at the Big House. It's the final year of the State Fair Arena, and there are two players that are playing for Wilson High School, and they have to wear ankle monitors during the game because they were basically being investigated.
They're under suspicion of
in connection
robbery.
to an armed robbery, not just a robbery, an armed robbery. Well, hopefully they're B. They're Class B.
Hey, that was my guess. I love it. But like Tiffany is my litmus test of like when a story transcends just like, oh, it's interesting because it's sports. And I was bouncing that off of her, and she was like, "No way." And it just gets better. The late game thing is what kills me. Like, if a game goes into overtime, they've got to get out of town, or if it's a road game, they've got to leave early. Like, that's just unbelievable if that's all accurate.
And I think a lot of it has to do with because I guess the town is technically within a tribal area that it's being investigated by the FBI, which I don't think it's just a straight. This happened in Jinx. The Jinx police are investigating it or whatever. It's kind of fun, though.
All right. I think
they ended up getting beat, too, so they're out.
The FBI needs some vision to see exactly what's going on with this armed robbery.
I think Doge has actually cut that. I don't think we have that anymore. March Madness is around. Sooner fans might be headed to March Madness. I know one team is on the women's side, watching them play in the SEC tournament right now. Whether you're witnessing half-court buzzer beaters over at the Ford Center, shout out Northern Iowa, or planning full-court perennials. I don't even know what that is. That must be a flower. Clear Vision is a slam dunk. $500 off LASIK at Enjoy Vision. All you got to do, just schedule a free consultation. EnjoyVision.com. That is the letter NJOY, vision.com. $500 off LASIK. That's all you got to do. Then you'll see clearly. You'll be able to see the entire board come, the NCAA tournament, first and second round. You can bet the board. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
Also, go check out our good friends at CodyDrugRx.com. They specialize in helping you feel better. I'm actually on their Instagram site right now, Will Douglas and the boys down at Cody Drug, looking at some of their Instagram posts, and he goes over all kinds of supplements, nutrition hacks for sleep and stress reduction. He just wants you to feel better. And guess what? If you are looking to lose some weight, they are one of the most popular pharmacies in Texas, and now licensed to help customers right here in Oklahoma. If you want to kickstart your weight loss, just have a quick telehealth visit or go see your physician and tell them, hey, I want a GLP-1 weight loss medication so I can lose some weight. And just tell them that you want to use Cody Drug RX as your pharmacy instead of Walgreens or CVS or whatever. And they will give you a custom compound in their state-of-the-art, make it up in their state-of-the-art sterile lab, and overnight it to your house on ice. So they're a lot like the Amazon of weight loss drugs. Not sure what supplements you need. Like I said, go to their Instagram page, Cody Drug RX, and check out some of the videos. Will's got the big Sooner schooner behind him in some of them. But big Sooner fans, big supporters of NIL, longtime scoopers, CodyDrugRx.com. They are there for all your wellness and weight loss needs. All right, we have Josh has had an emergency. He is back, I believe.
Yeah, sorry. Needed water. You guys know I just don't do well without a cup of water somewhere near me. So.
Well, you heard me at the top of the show, so we all need that for sure. Okay, so anything? Do we want to finish anything up on Jim Nagy? Any impressions there?
I mean, no.
Are we ready to move on to.
It's just going to be kind of fun to see what he can, like, how quickly can he make an impact, I guess, is my big question. I think it's more of a long-term situation, but can he, how active are they going to be during the spring portal? What's the spring portal even going to look like, I think, is probably the next big question as it affects on-field play. Obviously, it's going to be really interesting to see how they outfit the rest of the front office.
I just wonder how much is going to be in the spring portal after.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you just don't know who's going to be in there.
Because you think that most schools have figured out, like, how to secure their people that they want to keep. So I don't know that you'll have any real huge names, or maybe you will. Maybe some guys held off saying, I'll wait till the spring and put my name in and just see what I can get from other people.
I feel like it's so unpredictable right now, you just kind of expect anything. Like, I would be surprised by nothing, whether it be people leaving or, people entering from other places that Oklahoma will end up going after.
And I don't know, maybe it's bigger than I think because people know that revenue share is coming and they want to get the big contract while they can.
Do you think that, and he certainly didn't tip his hand, but just the way that he talks about the front office stuff, it certainly seems like they would look towards the NFL for like assistant GMs.
Yes.
That's going to be super interesting because I would imagine those people that will be a part of that hiring process, this is like their busiest time of the year right now, getting ready for the draft.
Well, and he has to know like a lot of young scouts in the NFL that he thinks highly of that maybe aren't in a position to move up right now wherever they're at too.
Yeah. I definitely think that anything's possible.
I also wouldn't be shocked if you saw him hire somebody with an agent background.
That'd be interesting.
To deal with contract negotiations and things like that.
Yeah. And maybe even a retired, well-respected retired NFL GM or analyst.
Yep, Tom Condon. They're going to just go straight after the big fish.
Wow. He killed two birds with one stone.
Be awesome.
So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be, there's a lot of twists and turns to come, but it should be really interesting. I don't know, how much we'll hear from Jim Nagy. I would hope a lot because he does a great job with the media. I'm sure he'll let us know when something major happens for sure. Like, it's just going to be kind of cool to know, like, okay, maybe we have GM press conferences to go to. Okay, so John Mateer spoke yesterday.
I don't know. Usually that's a bad thing, isn't it? When the GM is speaking.
Not when Jerry Jones is speaking.
He's
going to say some crazy
shit. I hope he does, because in the NFL, a lot of times either something bad happened or they talk around the draft or free agency.
Yeah,
I would hope maybe we get to talk to him every portal cycle. He gets to break down the guys that they went and got, or signing day. Like I would love to hear from him.
100% think he would be a part of those types of press conferences moving forward.
All right, so John Mateer yesterday. I think a lot of people everybody that I've talked to came away, nothing but impressed by hearing Mateer talk yesterday. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, guys. Like, just going from a freshman that's trying to figure out, if he can do this, play at this level, and be successful week in and week out, versus a guy that's played Division I football, that's played, against Power 5 competition, that knows what it looks like and what he has to do to be successful. Like, that in itself was a big difference.
Super confident. I not short on confidence, I think would probably be the best way to say it. He has that little air about him that he carries himself that, I think he's super confident about what he's about to take on. I do think he was a little bit, I wouldn't say nervous, but maybe just shielded in terms of, I thought his answers were really concise. He didn't want to really open up, but I thought he was good. I mean, I think that as he gets more comfortable, he'll be completely fine. Because I saw some interviews that he did back at Washington State. It just seemed like he was more open, but he also had talked to those guys for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I'm also assuming at Washington State he didn't have like 30 or 40 people all there with all those cameras. But I think the quote that kind of summed up him and his personality was, people say I have swag, I just play football.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of sums him up, I think.
No doubt.
Everyone hit your buttons for me real quick. I'll pay you next week, okay? Okay, thank you, Cassandra. Bye. Cleaning lady stuff, sorry. I didn't pay her yet. So, yeah, I can't pay her when we're doing the show. I'm sorry. Anyway, she's great. She's doing a great job. New cleaning lady. It's working, Josh. She's working out fine.
I love that there's a cleaning lady. That brings me some comfort.
Well, she has to clean around all the boxes, so that's part of the problem.
Yeah, she doesn't open any of the boxes. They just keep piling up.
So anyway, I mean, look, we're going to get to go out tonight and kind of see things. But, from everything you hear, John Mateer's come in. He's attacked, off-season workouts. The players seem to respect him. It seems like, it's been a really good fit. And, of course, people forget he's from Little Elm, right down the road, right next to Frisco. My dad was, when he was semi-retired, he was driving the school buses for Little Elm School District. And it's, talking about family and all the friends he had that were OU fans growing up, like, it seems like it's been a really good fit.
Yeah, and I think that
or transition.
The thing that sucks the most is it's just we're not gonna really know if this thing is fixed offensively for 6 months. And sure, they can practice well. I think for a lot of people, they're going to take a wait and see approach, and that's fine. I think that's probably the party that I'll be in, but I do want to see him sling it around a little bit just to get the vibe of what he looks like in a uniform and all that kind of stuff.
I'd bet my car that it's going to be better than it was last year.
Well, that's not a bold take.
Like I was telling somebody last night at the basketball game.
But I'm just saying,
the bar is so low.
Don't be that miserable. Don't be like, oh, it's going to suck again. No, it's going to be better. I know it has to be better than it was a year ago.
And I think that's...
You could be the 80th offense in the sport and still be miles better than you were last year.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that stands out about Mateer is I think his confidence is because he's done it before, and it helps so much that the guy that he did it with is also here.
Yes.
So it's not like he's stepping into something new with a bunch of new guys around him, but he knows what they're doing. And that was the thing that talking to the newcomers and the freshmen is they talked a lot about Mateer and just he is so comfortable in what they're asking him to do that it's making their jobs easier. And so again, like Eddie said, we're not going to know until the fall rolls around, but it can't hurt. And I thought Brent's comments about Mateer and then also Arbuckle yesterday were interesting too, in the sense that he's basically said I trust them and I feel really, really good. I think the quote was, "I'm at peace with what they're doing offensively."
People are going to like hearing from Ben Arbuckle. I mean, we did one interview with him in here with the family business, right after he took over. And I mean, he gets it. You can tell he and a lot of people compare him to they get a Lincoln Riley feel from him. And it's not, I don't think it's because they sound as much alike as some people think. I think he just has a system that he believes in, and he believes that it's going to work and knows that it's going to work. And I think Mateer is right alongside him. They're look, just let us go out and do our thing, and you're going to see something really good.
Employee Appreciation Day is March 7th, and a Starbucks card is the perfect way to say, thanks for all you do. Have a smaller team? You can send up to 10 e-gifts in one transaction from the Starbucks app or online at starbucks.com/gift. Or you can also send physical or digital cards in bulk at starbuckscardb2b.com. No matter your team's size or location, Starbucks has got you covered.
My question with the offense isn't about Mateer and Arbuckle. I think they'll be good. Are the guys around them going to be good enough to elevate them to a different level? The offensive line, are they going to improve? And it's concerning, the amount of guys that are missing the spring that could be starters. The wide receivers, do I like Giovanni Gibson and think he's a great story and it was awesome to talk to him yesterday? Definitely. Do I think he can play in the SEC at a high level? I have no idea. And that's the part that it's I think John Mateer is a good quarterback. I think Ben Arbuckle is a really smart, innovative guy that's going to help this team, score more than they did a year ago. But they still need some of these other guys to, become dudes. They need them to, they need some of these offensive linemen. They need a Michael Fasusi to be a player. Maybe not next year, but eventually, all of these guys. There's so many guys around them that we just don't know about.
Well, and it's also, in terms of yesterday, I think we all knew it, but it was just strange hearing Heath Ozida and Logan Howell both out for the spring. You're like, oh shit, yeah, that's two of their best young offensive linemen that they need to get reps and build chemistry with other people. And it's just that's just no, it's not. You'd almost rather have receivers still out. I mean, you need to get that offensive line together and playing well.
I think we knew that they were going to be at the very least limited. I was just hoping that it was going to be this was just a cleanup and we're going to move forward. They're going to be fine. Maybe they could participate on the back end when they come back from spring break or something.
Well, and I do wonder how cautious they're being, because Brent did talk a lot yesterday about just the injury stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think that they're going to dial it back a little bit this spring in terms of how physical they are.
Too,
That kind of goes back to the end of last season when they basically had an audit of the locker room. We know that shit's out there. talking about everything that happened with Nick Anderson, and it certainly didn't fall on deaf ears. I think that they feel like they've tried to address that, right?
Yeah, and what did Brent say yesterday? Something about it's a 2-to-1 ratio on their injuries, practice to games. Like they're getting more hurt in practice than games or something.
That's insane.
Is that what he said?
I don't remember.
But that sounds right. Because so many. Let me
find it before people
we didn't ever watch last
go crazy.
Year.
Yeah. And that was the frustrating part.
Like the Javonte Barnes thing happened in a game, but I don't remember a whole lot of things where, someone, and he played the rest of the game, which was weird.
Sexton got
best
hurt
game of the year.
Sexton got hurt at the Ole Miss game.
Tarquin got hurt in a practice, didn't he?
Yeah, I want to say so. It was like that first week of.
I know he kind of had a few things going on.
Right.
At different
Jake
times.
Taylor definitely hurt in practice.
Well, I mean, I think that it kind of goes back into the first year with Brent. By week 5 or whatever, I remember we were talking about this team looks dead.
Yeah, that Kansas State game, they just didn't have the gas in the second half to keep up that year.
Yeah,
but it also
Oh no, it's the opposite. So this is the quote. It's been close to 2-to-1 from an injury standpoint. I know we had an inordinate amount of injuries this year compared to our first 2 years. So looked back at every part of our program and where we can get better, just being more effective in keeping our guys healthy. But 2-to-1 injuries occurred to games as opposed to practice, and that's no surprise. Being around the game a long time, that's probably about on par. But that did have a little bit to do with our decision with the spring game.
Yeah, I mean, look, he gave all the reasons, and it does make sense. It doesn't mean that I don't want to see John Mateer out there running Ben Arbuckle's offense for about 3 series.
Everything's true. I mean, it sucks that they're not going to have a spring game. It sucks that they're not going to have the, kind of the celebration of bringing people back to campus and all that kind of stuff. I guess you can if you want to come to the Crimson Combine, but I see where they're coming from. And that part does suck because I think that's just another reminder of the game that we all love kind of changing in front of our eyes. It's like the final kind of push of, it's a lot different in 2025 than it was in 2005 or whenever.
Eddie, and you're not wrong. Like I get it because I grew up just like you did, going to those spring games when I was a kid and that kind of stuff, and I remember all those kind of things. At the same time, I still see a world where this can be cool and can be fun. They're not there yet. Like we're like everything. It's
like
just
a spring
evolution.
weekend.
Like every time you start to feel like you're getting a handle on what this is, something else changes, and they're like, okay, well, this is going to give or this is going to move around. Like I said, I still think they can get to a point where they can have a scrimmage of some kind with another opponent or something like that, and you could do whether it's a home and home with Tulsa, where you go up there for a couple hours and scrimmage and they come down here, whatever it's going to be. I don't know. I don't have the foggiest what that would look like, but that can all happen. But it's almost like you've got to cut off this limb, stop the bleeding, and then, okay, let's look back and figure out how we go forward from there.
Well, and you remember when Brent first came in here, he talked about, not rehab, but what's the term for like you work out and you recovery? Like, remember they bought him those recovery leggings or whatever, and like they'd never had anything like that before, and it was because he knows how hard that you have to practice. And let's face it, I remember, Eddie, the first time we went out there and watched practice, I was like, holy shit, this is a madhouse. Like, this is
super intense.
This is so intense compared to what we're used to, watching when we would go out and watch stuff. Like, from the moment they stopped, like, they went right into that W drill stuff as soon as they were done stretching.
Yeah.
And they're blaring, Motley Crue over the speakers, and everybody, their whistles are going crazy, and everybody's getting jacked up. And, like, you see Brent, and, like, even then, back then it was like Ted Roof, like, they're right in the middle barking at people, and Todd Bates, mild-mannered Todd Bates, turns Jekyll and Hyde, and he's going nuts. And, of course, Chavis is out there and young and going nuts. But it was just...
yelling at Taylor Wine, just yelling at
I
him.
feel like Chavis didn't have a shirt on and his hat's backwards. Like he's losing his mind.
He's got about a whole can of dip in,
rubbing grass on his face, like just losing his mind.
But no, I mean, it was insane. And I was just like, how are they going to survive? But you know what? It made them better. And they became a real defense for the first time in over a decade. So there is some method to the madness,
well, I think
but
a lot
it's how
of
do
it
you
was
balance
just
it?
installing a culture too, and that obviously I think is in place now. But those first couple years, I mean, I think that the one complaint from the fan base and the one complaint, maybe even from the media to a certain extent, when we looked back on it in hindsight, was it had become a fairly soft program under Lincoln, and I think that they have changed that.
Yeah,
and I guess I'm kind of coming back to the conversation we had, Josh, on the spring preview show, just in terms of like, I can see a way where like I can start buying in a little bit to what they're doing down there. It's just the offense was so fucking bad last year. You just hope that thing can get turned around because, I think it's a lot like any other sport. You look back at some of those games, and it's just like, if they just, hold on to the football against Missouri, or if you're able to figure out a way to win, a Tennessee or something else, the record wise, 6-7 for the second time in 3 years, it changes the narrative completely. Like, I think we're talking about this thing like, yeah, they're just going to be able to fit these guys in.
It is, and the thing I'll say for some of the, and to kind of get back to the injuries and all the decisions they're having to make, is one of the guys, I think he's probably the video that most people have gone and watched from the video you accumulated yesterday, Eddie, is Michael Fasusi.
Yeah.
This spring couldn't be playing out better for Michael Fasusi. Like, there are windows available there for him to step through and be a guy. So I just like, yeah, there's some stuff that sucks, and I think everybody knows how much I think of Logan Howland's potential, but I'm not mad to watch, for an opportunity to see a lot of Michael Fasusi at left tackle and see what that's going to look like, and see if he's actually a guy that could do something from day one.
Josh, what do you think about him saying he's up to 302 pounds?
Guys, he is. I'm trying to remember what he said. I had heard he showed up at like 282 or something like that. I think he said 278.
That would match because he said he gained 20 pounds, Josh.
Yeah, so I had heard it was 282. So, and then the last I'd heard was like 296 or 297. So, I mean, guys, he's putting on a couple of pounds a week at the rate he's on. And obviously there comes a point where that stops. But I don't think it's impossible at all to think he can get to 315. And if he can get to 315 and is anywhere near where he needs to be in the weight room, okay, like that stops being a question for me.
That's kind of the crazy thing too, is just the fact that, we all saw him yesterday walking around. He doesn't look 302. Like, if you just asked me what he weighed, I'd say, I don't know, 280. Like, he looks like he can still gain. I don't think 30 pounds would be crazy. Like 30 on top of the 20 that he already has.
He said he wanted to get to 315.
Okay.
That's his goal.
I think he'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh, God, he's living that good life, eating peanut butter and jellies. Oh, jealous. I'm just jealous of that life all the time.
I enjoyed talking to, if we want to talk about some of the players that we spoke to yesterday, just on top of John Mateer, I really enjoyed talking to Derek Simmons. I thought he was a really interesting guy, and, I think he was a guy that they definitely wanted coming out of the portal from Western Carolina, even though it is going to be a massive jump. And he brought it up yesterday when we were talking. It's a good thing that you have somebody like an R. Mason Thomas that he can go against every day and try to develop himself and see really where he stands in this grand scheme of things.
Well, I thought it was, and I haven't had a chance to watch his interview yet, Eddie. I've gotten through about half of them. But what I will say, and I thought it was interesting with what we're talking about with Nagy and Brent and how that whole marriage works. I thought it was interesting when Brent is talking about Jake Rosenberg being used in that they did that already kind of this year where they went out and said, okay, this is the money we have. This is what we need. And they focused on guys within that idea, where we're, all winter long were like, oh, they should look at this guy or that guy. But they did this for a reason. Like, they identified these guys, including Derek Simmons, who I know a lot of people kind of wrote off, and then you watch his tape and you were like, oh, no, this guy can actually play.
The one guy that really stood out to me yesterday, just sizing him up, Kendall Daniels. And I know you guys have seen him.
He's a big kid, isn't he?
But my gosh, he was maybe the best looking athlete that we saw.
The thing that about Kendall to me, like, Eddie, I haven't seen him in 3 years. Like, I haven't seen, like, really, like, just without pads on. And to see the video and pictures you guys put up, I'm like, that's not that skinny kid I remember. Like, that's a man now.
Yeah, I bet he's gained, since we saw him before he even got to Stillwater, I bet he's gained 40 to 50 pounds easily.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
I have no idea where they're going to play him either, and it sounds like he doesn't. Yeah, he kind of was.
I love the quote that he gave to you about, I don't know where I'm going to play. I just know that I'm playing for Brent Venables, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm curious to see. I thought Marvin Jones Jr. was another guy that really stood out, like, athletically. Like, he's just a big dude, and just talking to him, like, he's been around the block. Like, he's done this before. Obviously, being at Georgia and Florida State, like, he understands the what it takes to be really good. But I'm trying to think. Giovanni Gibson, big dude, like, he's definitely looks the part.
I was a little bit surprised to see how big Marion Robinson is, Josh. Not necessarily height wise. He's just he's a brick house.
He's stout. Like, I mean, and again, like, very different in the way they play, but, like, for people that go back a ways, there's some Ante Jones to that, like, just a stout little,
could see that
fire plug kind of guy. Or, for those, maybe that is too far back, like a Bob Sanders from the Colts, like that same kind of, like, 5'8", 5'9", probably going to play over 200 pounds for most of his college career. He is people want to kind of pigeonhole him as, like, this little guy, and I'm like, no, man, he's just short. He's not little.
Elijah Thomas too, physically, he looks ready to play. I mean, he could still put on probably 10 more pounds, but he definitely, and he's got the confidence. I mean, he basically was like, I feel like I could come in and play for OU next year, and talked about possibly doing some returning stuff. I know Isaiah Satania, the transfer from Arkansas, also talked about being a returner. But yeah, talking to Elijah Thomas, it was like, okay, I can see. He told me, Josh, that he thinks he can run a 4.3 40 right now, and his vertical is like 36 inches. Standing vertical.
I can't. And this is a guy, like, guys, the track coach at Chakotah is also teaching, Oklahoma history. Like, this isn't like a guy that had studied under great track, like, you go to Jinx Union, like, those guys go to, like, track, coaches clinics and that kind of stuff. Like, the guy at Chakotah is probably just he's just a guy that helps out with the track team and has learned a little bit through the time. So it's just crazy that he can and that's what, like, I talked about when people were like, but Josh, he's so talented, he's so good. And I mean, I loved him. I had him as my number one guy. Like, there's no question. I just thought, like, wait till year 2 when he starts figuring out how to, like, run with proper technique or to do all these simple things that we kind of take for granted. He's just so freaking gifted, it doesn't seem to matter. Like, he can just do them, even though maybe he doesn't know how to do them exactly as you would coach.
Let it be noted and put on record that Big City Josh shit on Sulphur last week, and this week it's the Chakotah track coach. I stand with every small community in the state of Oklahoma, and I hope you guys remember that at the polls. Yeah. She was. She's on the. She's on the
one phone call.
She's on the water tower out there. It's right by the stadium, which is actually a really nice stadium off I-40.
Oh, it is. It's always funny, like watching their highlights, and you just see the truckers going by on 40 in the background.
I thought two of the guys just looking at him yesterday. I mean, Kendall Daniels looks fantastic.
Yeah, we were talking about him when you left the room. It's unbelievable what he looks like now, as opposed to what we saw when we saw him in high school before he ended up in Stillwater.
I would say he and Marvin Jones Jr. were probably the two that I was just like, okay, these guys look like they physically can play a lot of football.
100%. Those are both the first two names that we talked about.
Okay. Well, sorry, I had a little car situation. I put we're going to tow you on the cleaning lady's car because I didn't know what it looked like.
Oh, whoops. We don't usually hand those out.
We've had a problem with the... Anyway.
There's just one that is a recurring character.
Yeah. So... I know you guys... I'm sorry, I missed out on some stuff you talked about. I don't want to...
Oh, we were just talking about the guys that we were kind of impressed with, either talking to or physically yesterday.
Trent Wilson, I don't think cracked a smile the entire time.
Oh, boy.
He should have been third guy that we talked about. He's one of the most intimidating people I've ever talked to.
He told me he's up to 300 pounds, too, by the way.
He looks it. I mean, but in a good way.
He's just one of those guys that he kind of reminds me of. He has broader shoulders than a DJ Terry.
Thick dude.
He's just a thick guy.
How
He's
tall
a
is he?
big guy.
He's 6'2.5" on his on-3 profile.
I would say that's probably about right. I would have said 6'2". He's not 6'3" by any means, but he's just a big guy.
Do we think he can get on the field next year?
I think in the way maybe David Stone did this year.
I talked to him just about technique and stuff, and you can see all the interviews with those guys on Suitor Scoop's editorial page. I think that if he can get it down and be one of those fast developers like a Jaden Jackson was, I could see him given some time.
Did you guys ask? Did Ryan Foje say anything about what he weighs? Because he looks.
He told me, but I can't remember what it was.
I mean, he was almost 300 coming in. He might have been.
I think he said that I think I remember him saying that he doesn't want to add any.
Okay,
he's not part of that group.
It's always awkward asking these guys like, "Hey, how much do you weigh?"
Yeah, they're probably like, "What do you weigh, you fat slob, unathletic swine?"
So with the camera, I'm 245.
My hand was like cramping last night at the basketball game because I felt like I had the camera on my hand for 5 hours.
Oh God! Did you do the game? I just assumed you didn't do the game. Ed.
Oh no,
I thought that was
full service here at SuitorScoop.com.
Man.
I would not miss the senior night for the world.
And I do want to say, as the one person of Scoop that had nothing to do with all the coverage, you guys, like from Bob, U3, like that was awesome. Like there was all kinds of. I haven't even been able to consume it all.
I think we talked to everybody.
The only guy that we didn't talk to, I think, was Josiah Martin.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. We even talked to...
Did he just give everybody like double birds in the corner?
No, I think we just didn't get to him because he was part of that transfer group, and that was the first group out, and we were just trying to make sure that we got enough of Kendall Daniels and those guys that I think are truly going to make an impact this year. And that's not to say that Josiah Martin can't. I think it'd be probably good for him to develop a little bit under Emmett Jones.
You're playing the odds.
The interview that I did with the UCO punter that I legitimately didn't even know was on the team. I thought it's just a fantastic reminder of, again, like kind of tugs at the heartstring. Kid that grew up in Edmond talking about, crying when he got the call from Doug Deacon, and he was playing at UCO last year. It's kind of cool. Don't think he'll ever punt, but hey, thought it was cool.
The specialists, man, they, Welch and is it Ulrich?
Ulrich.
Yeah, Ulrich. Yeah.
Boy, Doug Deacon.
Ulrich?
I don't know.
That's how I would say that last name, but that's European soccer. I'm not sure it's the same.
They love them some Doug Deacon. I mean, they raved about.
There's ULRICH. Ulrich.
There's not a B in there? I thought there was a B.
No. I thought there was too.
Oh.
I thought there was too.
Yeah.
Because when I was putting it into on YouTube, like I put Ulbrich, which is kind of weird that OU hasn't put out a roster yet. Small complaint. But I had to go to his Kennesaw roster or profile, and it's ULRICH. Ulrich.
Okay.
I think everybody enjoyed their conversation with him. He has kind of like the hair down to his shoulders, little sunshine look.
Yeah. I take it you guys mentioned the thickness of Owen Hollenbeck, too.
He's just a large kid.
God.
Just a large, I mean, and Josh, this isn't
he
like
was standing up the whole time. Like, I don't even know if he had a table. Maybe he did. Nobody was coming over to him, but he was over there hanging out with Malik Hawkins a bunch, and I think he just wanted everybody to take in, I am Owen Hollenbeck. Like, I am massive.
He's like the same size that he was when he was in high school when we talked to him, and that's not a bad thing because he's a massive kid.
Yeah. This is gonna. I'm just gonna own that this is gonna sound weird, and we're gonna need to pause after I ask. Did he have pants on?
He had jeans
or like shorts.
I think he had some kind of
that's
type.
It was jeans.
Because Carey, we've talked about it. I am a guy with large legs, like big calves. Like I'm just big in the lower body,
thick with two C's.
But the Owen is like he makes me feel like a little kid. Like his calves are like softballs, like they're humongous. Like it's and you're like, holy crap. But I mean, it's that powerlifting background.
Yeah,
he's just a big guy.
Josh, I wonder, could he finally heal the hurt from Bryce Foster?
I mean, he has that level of strength. Like, he is that kind of dude. I've said it before. My only question with Owen is, did he get a little too big, a little too young, and are they going to have to change his body up just a little bit? Because like, I worry that like because he is crazy strong. Like I wonder a little bit if it made him a little bit stiff, and they're going to have to just change some of his training stuff a little bit and do that.
Work on his flexibility.
Again, yeah. Just and really like I'm talking like ankle, just lower body flexion. If he can work some of that out, guys, there's not many guys in the country because he's not like a 6'6" guy. Like if he gets his hands on you and gets underneath you, you're dead. Like it's over. You're not fighting that kid off.
I am concerned about the head athleticism of the new tight ends. Will Huggins and John Locke, not athletic heads.
I will tell you, Will Huggins, though, he is a tall dude. I mean, he is every bit of 6'7".
He's crazy.
We when we were going back over in between the break, when we came back to do the break, the instant reaction to Venables, Nagy, and Batir, I did see the tight end group walking across the way over from the indoor back over to the facility.
Yeah.
And Jaron Kanik was with them.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that
well,
that
that's
should
one
be
of
a
the
surprise,
things we didn't get to ask about yesterday because we didn't get any questions. I mean, you
just weren't part of the 6 that he took. 6 questions.
I was part
I thought
of
it was
6.
4.
I think it was 6, but still.
But I'm just saying we didn't get to drill down into like personnel
and
changes.
There will be a time for that, but yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see what that position is. I mean, I think it's going to be very talked about over the next 6 months before the start of the season, and what the hell? I have no idea. I truly have no idea.
I think Carson Kent's your starter. That's the feel I get. The transfer from Kennesaw State.
I just want to. I mean, and I guess we'll see today what he looks like out there. But I need a status update on Devon Mitchell, just in terms of where that's at.
Yeah,
can he be a guy that could end up starting by game 1 next year?
You'd like to think so.
Yeah, I just have no idea.
By the way, we didn't mention Darius Afalava being held out a little bit.
Yeah, great interview, by the way. I talked to him for a few minutes. He is awesome.
Well, he's done the show with us before.
Yeah, he was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like the pictures I've seen of him, because I think he came in at like 330 or something.
Yeah,
like
he's
something
a big
massive. Dude. But he doesn't look flat. Like it's not like I'm not saying it's like perfect, but it's not nearly like you would think to hear 330 for a high school
He's
senior.
just another one of those kids he's just really thick. There's nothing like fat about him. He's not a fat 330.
I asked him something like how would you describe your game for someone that hasn't seen you play? And he's like, I just love hitting people. And I was like, well, that's good.
The one thing I did talk to Derek Simmons about too, he loves Bill, just in terms of like the tough coaching. This not a guy that is going to be get his feelings.
He looks
hurt
like
by any
he
means.
could be Bill Beatenbow's brother,
like bodyguard.
Yeah,
he is massive. When he stood up, it was like, oh shit! I don't even go up to like his chest.
You read my mind, George. Like, he looks like a future O-line coach.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what he looks like to me.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Now, speaking of tight end, H-back, did either of you talk to Tourney Washington?
I did.
Bob did.
I did too. I talked to him for a minute.
What did he say about position-wise? Anything?
He's working at tight end and H-back. I mean, I think that's kind of they're kind of cross-training. Like, I think all those guys are doing a little bit of both, inline stuff and also, hey, can you, be in the backfield and be kind of a lead blocker? But
which would give you some flexibility with, personnel packages and things.
He sounded like a kid that he knows he's like a year away from being somebody that can really contribute or help. So I think he kind of knows he's got a lot to work on in terms of just getting in the weight room and developing, his body.
I thought it was very promising with what we saw from Tourney at going back to last summer, Josh, at the camp when he was working with the tight ends.
He has, to his credit, because I don't know that was something he was always that excited about. But once that was the opportunity that they were going to give him, he was like, okay. And I mean, every time I saw him, it wasn't drastic, but you're like, he's a little bigger. He's put on 3, 4, 5. Like, you could see it over time. Like, he's getting a little bigger. And guys, I mean, that's a Carl Albert guy. Like, you're not going to have to tell him these are the little things we do to win football games. Like, he knows. Like, that's the expectation. And I've got to think that's part of the comfort in Oklahoma taking him when they know exactly what George said. The odds are he needs at least a year or two to really be able to help at a place like Oklahoma. But, like, he's going to be a good teammate. He's going to do the stuff you need to do. And he's talented. It's just, guys, I mean, when they took him, he was probably 6'2.5", 6'3", and 185, 190 pounds. Looked a lot, I mean, not much different physically than Elijah Thomas, just a little longer and a little broader. And now, you give him time and he can be a 230-pound guy that might be a pretty interesting kind of move tight end type of player.
Yeah, we didn't really get into, I mean, I think other things are like, obviously, I mean, I know you guys did your spring preview and Jacoby Johnson was one of those guys. And I agree with whoever, George, it might have been you, that he should just be DB and just stay there. And I think that's the plan, but hopefully they're not screwing around and playing him both ways still. That was one thing I would like to see Brent address yesterday too.
Do we want to talk
his position changes overall?
Do we want to talk any future freaks before Josh has to get out of here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it. Big weekend ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it. I know, more seriously, we have talked about, the list is up on the Crimson Corner. I know that you put it out in Woke as well, I believe, this week. It just seems like it's a big weekend. To say that they're going to walk out of there with 7 commitments, probably be a little bit overzealous, but it is necessarily a big weekend. I'm super interested to hear what these guys have to say about Jim Nagy and what he presents to them, because I would imagine there's going to be a point of the weekend that there is some type of either formal or informal presentation of this is kind of my vision of where this thing is headed.
Yeah, I mean, guys, this is always, and I'll be honest, I don't want to say forget it, but like I don't make enough note of it in the build up to it. Guys, right now I have, 50 confirmed visitors. They don't have any other weekend that's like this. And that's not even including, like, the list I usually keep is very much like guys that have offers, guys that are going to be notable. Like, sometimes, you get some guys that are brought in and either, they're a teammate of somebody OU's really interested in or something like that. But like 50 viable guys, these guys will probably play Division I football. And you look at the numbers, and it's just like, holy cow, this is This is huge, and there's so many offensive and defensive linemen. We talked a little bit about that in the preview earlier this week that kind of doubled as the recruiting report. But there are huge numbers and so many like good names. I think one of the interesting ones that got added this week, and I don't think we've talked about it, is they're bringing in Jalen Battle from Edmond Santa Fe, the big defensive lineman that won D-line MVP at Under Armour a couple of weeks ago when I was there. And I don't know that he's a guy they're going to go pursue real hard right now, but he's 100% a guy that if you told me they miss a couple of guys and in, kind of mid-late May or starting to look for some other options, he's absolutely a guy that could get an OU offer. And this is where you start to lay that groundwork to be able to go in, make that offer, and it means something to that guy.
I don't know where you want to go. If there's anything else to go,
sure.
It's just that we've talked so much about it, and it's coming up, and
yeah. There's two other things that I guess we should, just if we're going to talk a little recruiting. Oklahoma makes a new in-state offer. Cooper Hackett, the big man from Fort Gibson, and obviously a lot of people will immediately make the connection. The first Fort Gibson offer Oklahoma's made since Teddy Lehman, in the class of 2000. To put that in perspective, Teddy Lehman and I graduated in the same high school year, so it's been a little while. But what I thought was really interesting, and I'll have some more in scoop on this on Friday, Teddy Lehman and he spoke. Like, they had a chance to speak after the offer, and there is, like, they had never spoken before, but I get the impression that that's a relationship that is going to be kindled a little bit, and they'll let that kind of happen. But I think that is a kid that if Oklahoma gets on course, everything stays like Oklahoma would want it to, or gets on track to where Oklahoma wants it to, that's probably going to be an Oklahoma Sooner. If I'm betting money, when you tweet out a picture of your offer and it's you as a little boy in an Oklahoma Sooners jersey, that's usually a pretty good tell. The other thing I will say is interesting is Titus Hawk, the 2027 tight end from Choctaw. He's going to be on campus this weekend. They're bringing him in. This is kind of the guy that's, probably the next big in-state tight end. I don't think there's any state that gets less credit for producing at one position than Oklahoma at tight end. Like, you look at the names, obviously you go back to the 90s with Alexander and all those guys and Brady, and now, you had last year at Washington. Nate. Well, I'm just going. Nate Roberts. God, I couldn't get that. My brain just went blank. And then you've got this kid, and you look through the years, there's just a lot of good tight ends that have come out of the state of Oklahoma. I think Titus could be that next guy. Picked up a Penn State offer earlier in the week as well. I would kind of expect him to get an OU offer while he's on campus. So that, again, and I think that will make six or seven 2027 offers Oklahoma will have already made in state. So I think you're starting to see that 2027 group in Oklahoma is they really think that's a good group. So and I agree. There's a lot of talent in state. So that's something to watch.
You think
and again, Scoop will have a lot more in all of this.
Is Titus Hawk also he's a really good baseball player, isn't he?
He absolutely is. His dad, I think we covered this back when I went around Choctaw last spring. His dad is Shane Hawk, was I think all 2000s Oklahoma State Cowboy pitcher. Like, was an outstanding player for Oklahoma State.
Built a fantastic
Choctaw's head baseball coach.
Yeah, and they're extremely good. He's built a incredible powerhouse over there.
And so I know Titus is very good in baseball as well. And I believe, and I called him a 2-sport star, and his dad corrected me. He's a 3-sport star. And I think he also does track, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Like, I can't remember what the third one is, but he's and guys, he's a legitimate 6'5", 6'6", and 200, and probably he's lean right now. He's probably 200 pounds, but again, he's a sophomore in high school, so I'm not worried about it. But he is, he's very promising. Everybody out there, you can tell they think he and the other guy, another kid they've got in that same class, Izzy Hammonds, I think they think those are going to be Choctaw's first like really possibly like national major recruits that they've had in this run under Jake Corbin.
I wonder if Jim Nagy is just night and day watching tape on all these kids coming in.
He said there's nothing more that he likes to do than sit in a dark room and watch tape.
Preach. I could do it. He was like, I just love evaluating. I'm like, I could do that all day. Like that's one of my favorite things each week is doing the new offers and just sitting there and watching tape for about 20 minutes.
All right, Josh. Anything else you wanted to hit on before you get out of here and go pick up the girls?
No. Like I don't really. Again, I think you're going to see some new offers go out. I don't want anybody to think, it's a disappointment if there's no commitments. Like Eddie said, that's not really what you should be expecting. That's not really the way OU does this. But I do think you'll see probably 4 or 5 new offers go out, maybe even in some in the 2028 class. So, again, just be patient. But, I think Oklahoma will be in a good position with a lot of these guys. And, again, we'll try and catch up with as many as we can and hopefully talk to Bo Bentley for the first time, because that has been a tough guy to track down so far.
Going to be interesting with Bo Bentley, and obviously his 5 visits are set up now. So, is OU there like the 2nd or 3rd?
I want to say the 3rd. It's that June 20th weekend, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. I think that is correct.
Which I imagine is that being angled for, is that the barbecue weekend?
Yeah, that is going to be the weekend. And I guess did I miss them putting that out? I knew he'd set up all his unofficials.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just going to be.
I must have missed this.
I only half read everything, Josh. So I've missed a lot of details.
An interesting note in the last week or so, Georgia has now also offered Bo Bentley. It almost feels like maybe it's a Oklahoma, Georgia, like one of them gets one of them gets the other, if that's the way that plays out. But again, I've spoken to some people around Jaden O'Neal. They remain steadfast. Like they continue to say, man, he's locked in and it's all good with Oklahoma. So we'll just have to see where this road goes, because they've given us no reason to doubt them at this point.
It's like it's made for a meme, the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a bunch of Spider-Mans or what it is, but there's a meme in there somewhere. All right, Josh, appreciate it. We will let you go, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you sometime with everything that's going on with spring practice getting underway today.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys.
See ya.
All right, Josh McCuistion takes his leave, and we've got a little bit of basketball. The women's final. Is it a final?
Yeah,
we
just won.
Got a final.
They won 70-52 over Georgia.
Good win. Didn't think they played very well, but good win.
Peyton Verhulst had 2 points, 0 for 6 from 3.
What they finished as a team from 3? I don't think they hit very many. I know they were
6 of 27.
Yeah, they were 3 for 15.
6 of 28.
They were 3 for 15, I believe, at halftime. Did not shoot the ball well and still played well.
Dominated in the paint. I mean, Reagan Beers 22 points, Liz Scott 11 points. OU had how many second chance points? 16 second chance. They had 38 points in the paint to Georgia's 18. So
they'll
play
Kentucky
Kentucky
they will take
tomorrow.
on the win. Oh, Kentucky tomorrow. It's already decided.
Yeah, they have a double bye.
Kentucky at 1:30 on ESPN.
So basically the same time slot as today. That's Eastern, I'm sure.
No, that's Central Time. 2:30 Eastern.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Oh, because they probably have 3 games tomorrow. No, they have 4. That's quarterfinals. It doesn't matter.
I know I was locked into the basketball game last night. I didn't even want to turn over to the Thunder game until it was over, because I think, like a lot of people, they were just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop down the stretch. I think even we were in the war
Never
room
a doubt. Never once doubted. They've been so good about closing out games.
96-84, they win it over Missouri last night, and man, things just weird, chippy stuff always seems to happen to Jeremiah Fears. I'm surprised that Missouri kid didn't get thrown out last night.
T.O. Barrett, he's an Edmond kid.
Is he an Edmond kid?
Edmond Memorial, yeah. Or, excuse me, Edmond North. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I that was the best game Jeremiah Fears played this year. 100%.
He was awesome.
I mean, I know that he had probably might have had bigger impacts just in terms of the way that they won on December 18th against Michigan, but 31 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I thought he was fantastic last night. Maybe the biggest stat of all, just 1 turnover. He's played pretty well, and George, I heard you talking about this on the radio this morning. Like the real sicko comment right now that would really get people angered and fired up. They've kind of played well over the last couple of weeks. I know they haven't won a lot of games, obviously.
You have to say they've gotten better. I mean, this team has improved.
You want to really piss people off? I think Porter's done a pretty good job from a coaching standpoint of just continuing to get these guys to keep banging on the door. They could have quit a long time ago. Now, that's not to separate with all the other complaints that we have about the basketball program. Those are obvious. But you go into the final regular season game with a chance. And I guess as bad as this stretch has been, that's all you can kind of ask for. The irony, though, of Oklahoma going into Texas and having to win to keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive versus Porter never having beat Texas is quite unbelievable. Like, you either win and you get into the NCAA tournament, possibly, or you lose and you really don't get in, and we'll see what happens on the other side of that coin.
So you think that if they win, they'll get in?
I don't think it's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's basically you win and you'll definitely be on that line. I think OU and Texas, it's basically a play-in game to keep your name alive for the NCAA tournament on Saturday. Feel terrible for Sam Godwin, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
did not look good.
It's
crazy to me that before he got hurt, he was 5 for 5. He was on a streak of making his last 19 baskets over the course of the last 3 games.
Well, really, I mean, Wagee played about as well as he's played all year.
He was awesome. And Toby Rowland did note on the radio last night, Mo didn't take part in Senior Day festivities. He has an extra year. If you can get what you've gotten out of him over the last couple games, I'd love to see him come back. He can be a serviceable big man.
Yeah, and he made his free throws. I mean,
it was a really nice win. Missouri's a good basketball team, and for them to kind of control the game the way that they did and come up with answers every time that Missouri made runs in the second half, it makes it even more frustrating that you look back at the 4 games that come to mind, whether it be A&M, LSU, Texas, or even Kentucky to an extent. You could throw in Ole Miss in there as well. If you just win one of those games,
that's how
you're
you drive
in good shape
yourself
right
insane, though, with this team. I mean,
but I think it's
a matter
all the way
back to the A&M game. You go to the LSU game. I mean,
it's a matter of
yourself crazy.
They can play good basketball, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that it just is going to be unfortunate if you look back and they don't get their name called, and they only have themselves to blame for putting themselves in this situation. I thought Fears, though, he was really, really good. It's kind of funny that since we've had the conversation about where he's going to go in the draft and kind of where he stacked up against the rest of the freshmen, since that point, over the last 4 games, he's been one of the best freshmen in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think it clearly got to his head when Jonathan Gavoni and everybody started putting him up there as, a lottery pick. And
well, it's just tough, too, because you're going against backcourts in the SEC that are about as veteran-led as you could possibly ask for.
And you're still a senior in high school, essentially.
Yeah, for the most part. From a physicality standpoint, for sure.
So, if OU makes the tournament, does that save Porter's job?
It's a fascinating conversation. And it's a conversation that I truly don't know.
I think the easy answer is yes.
I think it depends.
But there's so many other factors at play here.
Look,
like, is Buzz Williams looking to move? Is there, are they going to commit to more? If you keep... Yeah, this is so layered. If you keep Porter, you have to also make an investment in your NIL.
Yes.
Because it's not been a fair... look, the stuff that's on the court is on the court, and that's on Porter.
100%.
But the NIL has not been, good enough. I know people are putting money into it. Jalen Moore, they made a commitment to him. And by the way, Jalen Moore, I don't know if I'm more... hopeful because he did play all last night, even though he's on a bike for a while. Is he going to get better before Texas? Like, is he with rest? Does he get better, or is this something that he just battles the rest of the season?
He's just going to have to battle through it a little bit. I don't know exactly what the knee injury is, though.
Here's the thing:
can't be too significant
with Porter. If they are to somehow make the NCAA tournament, which would mean that they probably win on Saturday, and maybe they win a game in the SEC tournament, and they get to Dayton or wherever they get in. That'd be a pretty remarkable turnaround. I think it'd be hard to fire him if they were to somehow get into the tournament. Now, my question is, let's say they make the first 4 and they go get beat in the first 4. I don't know. That's a tough.
I think that it's one of those conversations like, do you want to sign back up? And I just remember back to the conversation we were basically having when it was like, yeah, they need to fire him. It was a lot of on-court stuff. And the new coach is going to have the same problems. I think the curveball would be here. You win Saturday, which, by the way, I think it's going to be really tough without Sam Godwin to beat Texas, even though Texas is not playing very well right now. I just think that what they have in the front court is going to overmatch Mo. He's going to get into foul trouble, and then you have nobody. Yeah, you're going to have to shoot extremely well. I think the curveball that could work out for everybody here is they win, they get into the tournament, maybe win a game, and he takes another job.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would look like. I don't know where that would be.
It's crazy because I know some people, some friends of mine that are actively rooting against OU right now because they feel like the best case scenario is they need to move on.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. It's like I think it's a little crazy to do that, but at the same time, I kind of get it.
I get
it. And the hard part too, and I'm sure OU's struggling with this in what decision they're going to make. And I don't think they've made any decision. I think they're going to wait and see how this all plays out. But as you look back at this season, it's like, man, they are like 2 or 3 possessions away from us not even talking about this. That they're in the tournament.
We're talking about seeding.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane.
If you just give them 2 of the 4 games that we had just discussed, obviously the LSU game, and then just add in A&M, Texas, or Kentucky, whoever you want to add in, or Ole Miss, they're probably like not only in the field, they're solidified in the field right now.
Yeah, they're probably
it's not the case.
Round of 10 seeds.
It's not the case.
9 seeds.
They weren't able to close games, and I think that like you bring them back, and that's the biggest fear is you're just signing up for the same thing, and you would have beaten a Missouri team that shot terribly last night, 9 for 31 or whatever it was, 7 for 31, and you beat a Texas team that's probably going to fire their head coach regardless of what happens. I don't know. It's an interesting. We could do an entire pod on theories of what they should do with the basketball program.
And here's what I don't know. I mean, I know, and George knows this. Like, OU always has a consultant on the hook or a consultant firm, that they can use for coaching searches. I don't know if you're in this situation, how Josie operates. Does he go out there and put feelers out to see who might be interested so he knows, like, if I don't have Porter, can I make a move that makes us better?
I mean,
does he know, like, nobody's interested in this job, that me getting rid of Porter is not gonna work out better next.
I mean, would it be wrong to say if he's not doing that, he's not doing his job?
I don't know.
Especially in the situation that they're in.
I think they're looking at all options.
Yeah, they have to be.
And the other thing too about this is, as toxic as it's been this year, like, does Porter want to come back? Like, even if they do, like you said,
that's why I'd say, like, would he look for something else? I mean, I think that he knows what's being said out there, and that's why I kind of think what he's been able to do in keeping the team together and getting him to play hard every night has been somewhat fascinating.
Yeah,
but I also don't know, like, what's the flip side of that? Like, would he take I'm just trying to think of a school that maybe loses their coach for another job. Does he take a Bradley? Does he take an Arkansas State? Does he take a mid-major, what we would think of as a lesser program with a better basketball support, or would he try to fix this thing? I really don't know.
I don't think he would take Arkansas State.
Here's my question, too, about Porter. Is Otega Owe as good as he is if he's still at Oklahoma? Milo Suzon, is he playing like he is now for Houston if he's still at Oklahoma? Like, is there a development issue with Porter?
Oh, I think that there is. But I also think that
those guys are also surrounded by a lot better players, I would say now.
100%. I would also say, though, that like Los, I think was always going to come.
Los definitely
he just needed something to not necessarily motivate him, but unlock it.
Yeah.
With Ortega, what he's been able to do at Kentucky is just shocking to me.
Yeah.
Not shocking that he's a good basketball player.
But he's been
shocking that he's leading Kentucky in scoring.
Yeah.
Kentucky.
But he has been they have taken Ortega and they've said, okay, what do you do well? Like at OU, he was a guy that was shooting threes and trying to do some of the dirty work. They've put the ball in his hand and said, this is your offense.
Yeah, I mean,
and
they
I
did
never
against
saw
Oklahoma.
that side of him at Oklahoma.
They did it against Oklahoma. I think a lot of that, though, had to do with Lamont Butler fouling out with 7 minutes left, and they didn't have a point guard.
Yeah.
And Jackson Robinson was obviously injured. He wasn't able to get out there, so they had to put the ball in his hands. But, I mean...
But with the roster that they had when he was here, he could have been doing a whole lot more of that for Oklahoma.
No. And it helps you have a big guy in Brandon Garrison. You didn't have much of a presence inside that night.
No.
It just, and that kind of gets back into the conversation of, like, do you believe in the 6'10" guy I think that they're bringing in? Like, if you believe in him, then maybe you do. I don't know.
But you also have to say, look at Jeremiah Fears, a guy that should be still in high school, and he's developed well. And he's got all the talent in the world, but they've used him the correct way. And they don't try and make him shoot a bunch of threes. They let him do what he does best, which is use his handles and get to the basket.
He's been a lot better. He's just been flat out a lot better. And I think maybe that is a little bit of growth from working with Porter. I know that he talked after the game last night about how much film he watches with Porter, just him and Porter, just watching it alone. Porter's talked about it. It's a very conflicting conversation. And with all that said,
good that we've gotten that out of our system.
With all that said, I think that there is I don't know. I think it's going to be really tough to beat Texas.
If they don't make the NCAA tournament, though, I just don't see how you justify bringing Porter back.
Right.
And especially because that would probably mean they lose to Texas, which would make him, 0-8 against Texas?
Yeah. And I think it'd be even worse than that. It might be 0-10.
I would say you have to get rid of him just from the perspective of, as you mentioned, the toxicity in this fan base right now.
Yeah. And maybe that is what would outweigh everything in the decision is that you have a fan base that is actively rooting against you, not the entire fan base. I mean, there were people there cheering last night, and there's people that want to see them do well. And you go talk to Jalen Moore or Duke Miles or Kobe Alvis, any of those guys. It's like I don't know how you could cheer against those guys trying to reach their dream of playing in the NCAA tournament. But
the sad thing is, we wouldn't be where we are right now if football was playing well.
Well, I kind of disagree. I think
they would be.
I think we would still be having this conversation about Porter.
But you could manage it better if you
for sure.
Castiglione. I mean, right now, as toxic as the fan base is, they're not going to settle for anything if he doesn't make the tournament.
There still would be a lot of people upset with the product of men's basketball.
Sure, yeah, but it would be a little bit more. It would be less. There'd be less noise.
I don't know. You can't miss the NCAA tournament for 4 consecutive years at Oklahoma.
Although the fan turnout from last night shows you that there's not a lot of interest in OU basketball right now.
No, it's a team that's been given up by a lot of people, and rightfully so. I mean, I think we were sitting here 2 weeks ago talking about the same thing that a lot of the fans have been concerned about. But when you say that, Carey, about like football being better, it would alleviate some of the pain that is happening right now.
I'm talking about the toxicity wouldn't be as bad as if football was playing better.
I get it to an extent, and I probably agree with you at the end of the day, but doesn't that kind of highlight, like, I don't know, I think that kind of highlights the abandonment that has happened with the program from the powers that be.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of stuff like when you put out the Crimson Combine tweet. Did you look at some of the responses to that?
No, because I think half those people are just trolling and having fun.
I think it should also be clarified that this was not the canceling of the spring game was not an administration decision.
No, it was Brent. I mean, Brent went to them late in the process and said, "We're not doing this."
Yeah.
Caught them off guard. They literally threw that crimson, and they don't even know what the crimson. I mean, like I was talking to people yesterday during all the media stuff. There are people in that department that have no fucking clue what the Crimson Combine is, because they made it up out of thin air.
Right. I mean, they should have just. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine, and fans will get to engage some with some of the players or whatever. But if I were them, I'd just open up the practice that day. Just say, all right, open practice.
And just not do team.
Just not do team, or do team for 5 minutes. Who cares? And don't televise it. I don't know. I think it's dumb.
I mean, look, if you're saying that the choice is waste a practice and make a bunch of money, or don't waste a practice and make no money in this era of NIL, you waste a fucking practice and make a bunch of money.
Yeah. And they're still going to practice that day. Brent said that yesterday.
It infuriates me that no one can get through to Brent like, this is also a business that we're running now. Like, we have to make money, and we're not Texas, and we're not whoever, Ohio State. We're not Phil Knight. Phil Knight's not backing us. Just blow a damn practice and make a bunch of money.
You could also get away with this shit a lot easier. I think the Crimson Combine would be smoothed over by a lot of people if they were 12-0.
Well, that's like Texas. Texas cancels their spring game, and their fans are like, "Sounds good. You guys are winning 12 games a year.
Yeah.
Who cares?"
Yeah,
but you're canceling practice, and you're going 6-7.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
And you still want money from us.
And it's just one of those things too, where it's like, this team is going to look so different next year. There's so many new guys that fans want to go see them, and I think that's justified.
It's like I told Carey when they made the announcement. It's like, you have this product that is easily sent out across the entire state, the entire country, and they just do it so poorly.
Yeah,
I just don't understand it.
Well, you can't let football coaches make all the decisions. I mean, that's why this GM thing is, I think, so embraced at Oklahoma, is because they do have to fight with football coaches all the time. I mean, and guess what? Bob won a lot. He got to call the shots. Nobody had any issues. But, stuff with Lincoln was rough. And, with Brent, it's been rough. I mean, just getting him to do the things like this, to just have a exhibition for the good of everyone.
Well, just the media day. It's, I'm not saying we need to talk to Brent every week in the off season, but the reason he had to give a 25-minute opening statement is because we haven't heard from him since the Armed Forces Bowl.
Yeah.
And it's like, it would have been easier to talk to him, February 1st when they hired Nate Dreiling and Wes Goodwin, and he could have talked about the portal class and all of that. It's just, I feel like at times it's been a struggle to, I don't know, connect with the fans, and just
something that I view as so easy. It seems like they muddy the water.
You know what would serve him best too right now is put Arbuckle in front of a freaking podium.
Yeah.
So the fans are like, oh, okay, this is a real offensive coordinator, because he would give off that vibe. Yeah. And it would settle a lot of people's criticisms or just their fears that this thing is fucked.
The only thing that he has talked publicly, right, is family business.
Right.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And we
to
took
me.
a lot of shit.
It's crazy.
And he will be speaking at the Crimson Combine, apparently. So that's good.
I'm going to go get one of those kids OU football jerseys, and Carey can take me as his child. We'll make a One Oklahoma donation or whatever that needs to be made. Put zits all over my face, kind of like Ace Ventura.
Just carry around that photo of you and Cale Gundy from back in the day.
We could probably recreate that. I bet Cale would do it.
Wasn't he wearing a muscle shirt? Like
Me?
a tank top? No, Cale?
No, he had his jersey on, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I do think there is...
it was Meet the Sooners Day, 1994.
I do think there's some positive momentum with the program right now, just in terms of... I do think Ben Arbuckle is a good hire. I do think John Mateer is a good quarterback. I think Jim Nagy, and I think the GM conversation and Brent's future, it's almost a separate conversation. It's two different topics. And I think that marriage is important for the next year, but I also think the, thought of Brent's tenure at Oklahoma, largely depending on next season, is totally different than what Jim Nagy is bringing to the OU football program. But I do think there's some good stuff going on. I just, I think sometimes they could promote some of that better.
Eddie, what's funny? You mentioned Meet the Sooners Day. I remember when I was running a website and I was just starting, and I hadn't even started. I don't think I was working for Sooners Illustrated yet. I went to a Meet the Sooners Day, like to cover it, like I was a media, like I had a recorder and stuff. And this is what they used to do for like media day. It was all in one thing. They would have the players out on the field, and you were out there with the fans interviewing people as they were signing autographs.
Yeah.
So it was like you would be, I remember, I think it was Trent Smith was out there, like he was just fresh out of high school, and I was trying to interview him, and there was a guy just the whole time, like the recording you could hear, hey, can I get you to sign this? Can I get you to sign this? So they'd stop answering questions. It was a madhouse.
Yeah, I could see that. Now you probably have some of the fans that are getting autographs trying to do some interviews as well.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Because they'd be like, can you do something for my paywall?
Yeah. I got a Patreon. Can we do a one-on-one?
Big SEC series finally here for OU women's softball.
Yeah, South Carolina coming up this weekend. It's crazy that they're already in conference play.
But first SEC series at Love's Field.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina, last check, when we did stickball, they were 19-0.
Yeah, they played Youngstown on Wednesday night, last night. I imagine they won.
They probably won, yeah.
I would imagine that we would have heard something if they didn't. But yeah, they'll be 20-0 coming into Norman. We'll see. I think it's going to be a fascinating early test here in the SEC to see kind of where things stack up for OU.
Maybe a little rain this weekend trying to avoid.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything yet. I think that the main idea coming out of both softball and baseball for this weekend, it's Saturday here in Norman. It's supposed to be pretty shitty. So I think that we were looking at, for baseball, looking at a game Friday night and then possibly a doubleheader on Sunday. I think the same was to be said over at softball, but I haven't seen any announcements yet. I would imagine by the time we get this out, there will be some type of announcement on schedule for this weekend.
And so OU baseball, they've got one final non-conference series with Sam Houston before SEC play begins.
Yeah, I want to say there's another non-conference series at some point, but yeah, final one against Sam Houston this weekend. Got their ass kicked on Tuesday. They're not going to go 56-0, but that was...
What happened there?
They got their ass kicked. I mean, just straight up.
Did they just walk a bunch of people, or
no? Dallas Baptist had 4 2-run homers.
Okay,
and the wind was blowing out 40 miles an hour to right field. And Dallas Baptist played in the same weather, so it's not an excuse. But they just kind of went out and went through the motions. I mean, Dallas Baptist had more 2-run home runs than OU had hits. OU had 2 hits.
It's a good thing you didn't drive down there to cover that.
Oh, that would have sucked.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would have made it with the wind on Tuesday night. It's crazy. It sounds like the bus ride was pretty eventful on the way down with the wind.
Oh,
and then
God,
also
that
very
wind, man.
very quiet on the way back. Is supposedly. I think Skip was not very pleased with the performance.
I don't think I'd want to see a pissed off Skip.
He was very angry. I thought it was really funny. I was giving Toby Rowland shit last night because Ross Hubbard, who lives down in the DFW area, he's going to do all the games on the radio with Toby when they're down there, and. I think it's the first game Ross has done this year, and he had to go down and do the post-game interview, and it took about 35 seconds of real time. Skip said, yep, got our teeth kicked in, and then they both kind of agreed, it's really windy, let's get out of here.
I'm trying to explain to Bob that George already ripped into all the row back.
I still don't understand why that's a weird thing.
We sold his stuff.
When I get a package, I open it.
Yeah, I just like how you get excited. I think it's charming.
That's weird. That's a weird comment.
Charming.
It's I like seeing people happy. Why does that bother you?
Opposite. I'm opposite.
I think I'm like that a lot of the time. I am opposite, but when I have an opportunity to see someone, get joy out of something, I enjoy that. Especially something that I put together. And Maria put together. Thank you, Maria. You guys probably don't even know who she is, and she's getting you free shit.
We've been in meetings with her.
Okay, you have. That's true. All right, anything else you guys wanted to hit on before we get out of here?
No, I am excited to go out, I guess, for the 25 minutes today, just to kind of see how the practice goes. Other than that, I'm ready to get into actually talking to some of the returning guys to get their thoughts on what's going on.
I just got an email.
Canceled?
Tickets are on sale now for the Crimson Combine.
Oh, who cares?
This should never have gone out.
You should go if you're out there.
That email came earlier this morning, I think.
Well, I just got it on my Sooner Scoop email. They must be embargoed from sending me stuff on time. I must have said something. All right, that's going to do it. Appreciate everybody out there listening. Remember, it's just $1 to sign up, and there's so much content right now flowing on Sooner Scoop. So go try it out for just $1. You will not regret it. Great community. And Joaquin Iglesias will be up on the Family Business this week. And so check us out on YouTube as well. But don't forget, Soonerscoop.com. Sign up, just $1. That's going to do it for this edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast. We'll be right back here next week for one more.